Hey everyone, thanks for joining us once again. So excited because we have Dr. Damon Kennedy, who is now the official president at Midland College. Congratulations on the new gig, by the way.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Did that catch you by surprise when you found out?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah?
There's always an element of surprise
Mm-hmm.
when you get into a process like this. You have high hopes for the outcome,
Mm-hmm.
but there are always variables and a lot of things beyond your control. So yeah, a little bit of surprise, but very pleased.
Yeah, and we all are. And so this is your first official week, right?
It is. My first day was Monday.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about your backstory. So you're a West Texas native. Where did this all start? Because you have a line of educators in your
Sure.
family too, right?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in Snyder. I was born and raised in Snyder, and I played tennis my whole life. And one of the things that enabled me to do is to travel a fair amount. My parents made a pretty broad commitment to our development as tennis players, and myself and my little brother were pretty good. We traveled to Midland frequently to play tournaments, and so I actually began playing tennis tournaments at Midland College before I turned 10 years old.
It was like your life foreshadowing the future.
Yeah, it seemed like, looking back, it
Yeah.
seems like probably that is the case. I graduated high school after only 3 years just because things were, high school wasn't my thing. I was pretty green, not really prepared to go to a university, and so I ended up at Midland College as a student in 1992. And that set me on a path. You're talking about foreshadowing. That really set me on a path to doing this work today. You mentioned the fact that I come from a family of educators. That's true. My father was a lifelong public school administrator. My mother was a counselor diagnostician. I have a brother who's a teacher, and so yeah, we have a lot of. My daughter is a pre-K teacher, and so we have a lot of that in our family. But I was exposed at Midland College to a number of really great human beings. I mean, they were great educators, but more so, they were great human beings that set me on a path toward success in higher education. So I went from Midland College to UTPB, and then from UTPB to Texas Tech, and came back to Midland in 2003, had a brief stint at the Petroleum Museum, and then I began teaching as an adjunct history instructor at Midland College in 2004. From there, I went into a full-time history professor position, Dean of Social Behavioral Sciences and Business, and then I have been the Vice President of Instructional Services for the last 5 years, and I've been the president of Midland College for 2 days, or 3 days now.
I feel like your resume it's just here's Dr. Kennedy, the jack of all trades, basically.
Yeah, and I joke often with folks that being a community college administrator, you have to be a utility player, because we're a relatively, by higher ed standards, a small organization. So you have to be willing to dig in multiple areas. You have to be willing in periods of transition of leadership positions to take on additional responsibilities, and then hopefully you get solid hires in behind and you can then relinquish some of that. But yeah, you have to do a little bit of everything.
And so before, I wanted to talk a little bit about how you led the launch of the Pre-K Academy at Midland College, which is a huge deal. What was the story behind that? I guess, how did that all start?
Well, the origins are well over a decade old. And they start with conversations with Midland College about offering quality developmental seats for young children so that families can go to work. We successfully operate our Great House and Manor Park Children's Centers. They are known through our community for being high quality. And so for years and years, there have been conversations about how we might be able to expand those. The challenge with childcare is the expense, and finding a balance between what it costs to provide services and what families can afford and that kind of thing. And so when we first began talking about additional seats, one of the things that was front and center for me was how we build a sustainable financial model. Because we're a taxing entity, we want to remain stewards of good stewards of taxpayer dollars. And so we began exploring ways to make it sustainable, scalable. And in 2017, the Texas legislature adopted Senate Bill 1887, which authorized in-district charter schools. And Midland College actually became the first institution of higher education to partner with a school district to build out a charter. So in 2017, we began that process. And I'll share that the work was done by a phenomenal team of people led by folks in our own organization, Denise McCowan, who's now our Dean of Education, and then on the MISD side, Chief Innovation Officer, who was Elise Kale. Dr. Kale did a lot of work on the ISD side. And so it was a year and a half worth of really, really hard work to get to a point where we were able to launch in the fall 2018. And so we've been at it since that time. We currently serve 68 kids. Half of those are 3-year-olds, half of those are 4-year-olds. And we're going to be scaling that project beginning in the fall. So we have a $30+ million building coming online in August. And so we'll serve 296 kids as we go forward.
That's insane. And so we've been doing updates on the building. How is it looking right now?
It's surreal to me to think that 10 years of labor is coming to fruition. And so when I walk through and I see the bright primary colors, you know, the reds and the greens and the yellows and the things that indicate we're getting very near the conclusion. You know, they buttoned up the building and there's air conditioning, and it's just, again, it's a surreal experience to walk through and see it. But we're in really good shape. A lot of credit goes to architects and to contractors and to our executive director of facilities. Joe Butts has done a great job in keeping this thing on task, and so it's exciting. It
is so exciting. And so the thing for anyone who is just learning about this, the thing about this pre-K building, it's basically a one-stop shop for the educators too. They could go to class and they can go and teach, right?
Correct. So the base level of the facility is our pre-K academy, and then the second level is our division of education. And so that is going to be home to our faculty and staff within that division that leads our efforts to train early childhood teachers. And so it's a really cool opportunity for students to learn in an environment where they will work in the future. It's also an opportunity for us to integrate some of what's happening on the lower level with what's happening on the upper level. We utilize the Pre-K Academy as a lab school, and so our students are going to have hands-on, real-world opportunities from day one, and that's something that we think is really, really important when you train teachers.
For sure. And one of the things that I also wanted to touch on is teacher shortages. I mean, we see it happen across the country, across the state of Texas. So how important do you think that this will be, this building, this program, to kind of bridge that gap with the teacher shortage?
I think it's important, the work that we're doing. I think the gap is sizable. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity moving forward to work in collaboration with our partners to the west, both UTPB and OC, in developing programs that are going to meet the needs of this community. And I think that's really, really important work that all three organizations are committed to doing. And
so does Midland College, how hard do you guys work at it with trying to retain teachers? And that's the thing, is like, we want to keep everyone local, right? Right.
We begin recruiting in high school, and we begin working with students through dual credit. We've had some challenges over time in getting to where we need to be, but I have to say that I feel supremely confident in the leadership within the district and the path that they're taking. They have some internal initiatives too, and work ongoing in human capital management. And so I think the partnership between the district and the college can yield some results.
And would you say that for any student teachers who are working to get into, the kindergarten classroom, is the transition seamless as far as going from the Pre-K Academy and then going into an actual classroom? Yeah, so our students in our program will work not only in our Pre-K Academy, but also on campuses within the district. And because we're working at certification level through third grade,
they're getting a chance to be on elementary campuses as well, and to work with seasoned, experienced teachers within MISD. I wouldn't say that the transition's ever seamless,
Okay.
because when you go from being a student teacher and you develop some of your own lesson plans and those kinds of things, you have a supervisory teacher there with you in the room. It's a clinical experience, and then you get opportunities to work in small groups and centers, and some days if if your teacher's gone, you get a whole classroom, but it's a little different when you go first day.
Right.
And it's yours, and you have an assistant teacher with you, you have some supports, but you're in charge, and it's yours.
Yeah, and you guys have a lot of healthcare programs at the college too.
We do.
Do you guys have a different way in approaching that as far as keeping them here?
We have a great partnership again with Midland Health. I'll tell you, we've had some challenges in staffing our faculty positions because faculty positions don't pay the same salaries as practitioners. So if you're a nurse, for example, at the bedside, you're going to make significantly more money than you would in a classroom. And so we have done really phenomenal work with partners at Midland Health, and give a lot of credit to people like Kip Brittamus and Michael Hall in our nursing program, because absent their creativity, we probably struggle right now to admit students. And so we can't even begin to have conversations about whether or not we're retaining them, keeping them local, because we have such a struggle staffing some of our programs.
Why do you think that is?
I think honestly that through COVID, the health professions have been kind of beat up. I think people are exhausted. I think you see some of the work that Tom Craddock has done in coordinating some funding for behavioral health initiatives here in Midland, and that includes dollars that are coming to Midland College as we build out a psychiatric technician program. What you see is people are tired, and so if folks are beginning to think about making a career change, they don't necessarily want to move from the bedside and into the classroom, because classroom instruction isn't necessarily that much easier. It takes a lot of commitment in terms of time, and again, if you're fatigued, you may not want to do that. You may not want to make that. And then, as I say, salaries, while I think we're competitive, I don't think we can compete with the salaries of practitioners.
What would you say to someone out there who's maybe interested, and maybe they can get into some of these programs at Midland College, but maybe they're a little scared to do so?
I think what I would say to students coming in is that we provide tremendous supports. We have an abundance of financial aid opportunities, and so if money is a challenge for you, don't let that be the obstacle. We have great faculty. I mean, I'm coming out of a role where I've overseen all the faculty on our campus. We have great faculty, and I look at COVID as a positive in some ways. It's hard for you to maybe consider COVID being a positive, but we learned a lot about ourselves through COVID. We learned a lot about how we can better serve students through COVID, and there was an element of humanity that I saw surface through COVID. And it was very impressive to me, particularly our health sciences faculty, our applied technology faculty, the level of their commitment. Now, all of the faculty were committed to students, but the level of the faculty that worked very directly in high contact hour courses with their students it was phenomenal to me. In the early spring of 2020, when it began to look like things were going to go south, we tried to be proactive as much as you could given the unknowns, but it was phenomenal to me to have conversations with faculty. They know all their students' names, obviously, but they know the names of the spouse, the names of the children, the names of the dogs, where there's challenges in various households. It's amazing. So I would tell students, don't be afraid, because we have everything you need to be successful at Midland College.
There's a strong sense of camaraderie,
Absolutely.
I think. And every time I've met with some of the staff there too, that's what I feel.
Yeah.
And so that's great. And so moving forward, are there any plans or any projects that you have up your sleeve?
Well, I mentioned the psychiatric technician. We've secured from the legislature $1.75 million for the next 2 years to build out 3 behavioral health programs. And so we're going to be working in concert with Midland Health and others to train the employees of a new behavioral health facility that hopefully will come online in the next couple of years. We're working and have been working very closely with MISD, business and industry partners, to update old programs and design new programs, and then build out a new CTE facility on the main campus that we hope can serve significantly greater number of dual credit students and our traditional students, as well as continuing education
Did you want to have, so did you want to have a new CTE building just to have the proximity on campus? Or what was the reason behind that?
Yeah, there are a lot of efficiencies with having the facility at the main campus instead of spread out in the way that we are now. It's going to be important to the school district, and you hear the challenges that they face in finding bus drivers and transporting students from home to school, much less from school to school, that they do because of the formatting of the grades. And so we think there are a lot of efficiencies, instructional efficiencies, but also budgetary efficiencies by being on one campus. But the real motivation is that the world of work around us is changing and evolving, and we need to change and evolve with that. And we're handcuffed by the spaces that we have now, and so we're looking to build new, modern, flexible spaces that can change as the world of work changes.
Absolutely. Was that something that maybe other people have reached out to you and like mentioned any concerns, or if there's any other concerns that people have brought up to you?
No, I think and I hear all the time that CTE is one of this community's most significant needs. I was about to say it is this community's most significant need. I could make that argument, but I don't want to be competitive in that way. We have a number of needs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And kind of summing everything up, when we talk about early education, just education as a whole, why is that so important, and why should that matter?
Well, education has an opportunity to change the trajectory of folks' lives, and we take our role very seriously in providing those opportunities to students. We have an exciting new project coming online that we're calling the College and Career Connection, C3 for short, where we're going to be very intentional about reaching out to kids and families beginning in elementary school.
Wow.
To communicate opportunities both through programs of study in MISD, but also dual credit with Midland College and our programming. And we want to show pathways to universities and professional schools, and we want to give kids and families enough information that they can make sound decisions. There are a lot of families in this community who might not think they can afford college, but they can. And there are resources in Midland. Midland is a phenomenal place. It is a generous community, and there are financial resources in abundance, and we want to make sure that families know that, because as great as Midland is, it can be greater, and education is a vehicle to the evolution of our community.
And throughout this interview, I know you have mentioned a lot of, you mentioned the school district, and why is it important for you to have Midland College be so heavily involved and just kind of be together as unified as a community?
Yeah, I've used this phrase, and people have come to utilize it as well, that Midland College can be the connective tissue. You see that the college and much of our programming overlaps with business and industry, whether it's the energy sector or healthcare sector. It overlaps with the work that the city does, for example, fire and police. We're engaged in a little bit of everything, and it doesn't make sense to me for the college to go at it alone. We've been working on a framework for a new strategic plan. While I've only been on the job for 2 days, my mind has been racing for a lot longer than that. And one of the things that we're going to continue to be committed to, maybe more committed to now than ever, is prioritizing our partners' outcomes every bit as much as we prioritize our own. So we talk about our key performance indicators internally. So we're helping ourselves. How can we help others? That's going to be a real big a piece of the work that I want to see happen at Midland College over the next several years.
Yeah, and it's great that you mentioned that, because I do notice there are more families that are moving to the area, so more families are having more kids, and it is important for Midland College to be part of that, to, you know, for the future of Midland, because we are a growing community. So glad you are here and glad you get to be a part of that. One last question I have for you. For anyone who is afraid of reaching that leadership role, and I mean, you've been at the college for what, 18, 19 years?
Yeah.
And so what kind of advice would you give to people who are maybe a little discouraged? Because it does sound a little scary sometimes.
I tell people all the time that I'm the most impatient person you'll ever know. I think leadership requires an element of impatience. I think that can be translated as urgency. You know, you have to be careful about how you communicate those things. I also think that there's a healthy amount of fear that goes along with leadership, and it's probably a good thing. If you're not a little bit afraid of the things that you're doing or the goals that you're trying to accomplish, then they're probably not big enough goals. And so, you know, the simple advice is set the fear aside and go for it. If it's something you want to chase it.
There you go.
Yeah.
So there you go. Great advice that you can hear from Dr. Kennedy himself. Thank you so much for being here, and so excited to do more interviews with you, because I'm sure that there will be a lot more after all these projects you get done.
Lots of news to share.
Yes. All right. Well, hope you guys enjoyed. Be sure to catch our other interviews and other stories on our app 9+, but we hope to see you next time. Bye.
Yeah. Thank you.